Elizabeth's story illustrates how the community arrow visually reflects how a person can move from a good paid life to a community life by figuring out what is important to the person and supporting the person to find a place in community that is in proximity of what is important to them. Developing relationships and being valued in the community as defined by the person supports the person to move up to a community life. Elizabeth recently moved to a new town. She is an amazing person and happens to have Down syndrome. She doesn't know anyone in this new town and depends on her mom and dad for just about everything, and there is a paid staff that supports her to learn independent living skills. Elizabeth found herself in the good paid life on the community arrow, where she had no friends of her own, and the only people in her life are family and paid support staff. To figure out how to support Elizabeth to make new friends and get connected to her new community, Elizabeth, her mom, dad, and support staff decided to focus on some things that are important to and important for Elizabeth. This is what everyone came up with. What is important to Elizabeth, some things that make her happy and contented are fashion, getting her hair and nails done, being organized, theater, dance, any performance arts, singing in church, getting a job, being around people who are funny and creative, and making new friends. What is important for Elizabeth, things that keep Elizabeth healthy and safe are medication for seizures, getting plenty of sleep, knowing what is expected of her and what is going to happen next, transportation support to go where she wanted to go, and making new friends. Elizabeth, her parents, and support staff wanted to figure out how best to support her to find a place that was in proximity of, or close to, those things that are important to her. As Elizabeth began to explore her new town with her support staff, she discovered a community theater not far from her house that was looking for volunteers. Elizabeth loves theater of any kind and signed up right away to volunteer. Volunteering at the theater seemed to make sense as it put her in proximity of things that were important to her. Elizabeth started helping out with costumes. She loved the amazing, fashionable costumes. She also started to hand out programs and never missed attending one of the performances. Both of these tasks appealed to her sense of organization. She loved the musicals especially and sat in the front row singing all of the show tunes along with the actors. She usually sat next to James. James' kids perform in many of the plays. He got to know Elizabeth, and they really connected on their mutual love for theater. After a while, other volunteers at the theater noticed that Elizabeth is a person who never missed her commitments, was great at organizing costumes, and the friendliest usher ever. Elizabeth wasn't just a cute young woman with Down syndrome. She was an asset to the theater. She was always invited to cast parties. As her new friends got to know Elizabeth, they learned about how important for her it is to remind her about what was going to happen during rehearsals and performances and check on her to see if she was tired and if she took her meds. She had become a valued member of the community theater. What happened next was unexpected. Elizabeth's new friend, James, owned 4 hair salons in town. James and his kids really enjoyed Elizabeth's company. James learned after getting to know Elizabeth for over a year that she had the skills and attributes that matched his idea of a great employee. She was organized, fashion savvy, willing to learn new things, a people person, and responsible. James offered her a job at one of his salons to support the hairstylist and check people in for their appointments. She jumped at the chance to have a real job doing things she loved to do. Figuring out what is important to and for Elizabeth, finding the theater as a place that put her in proximity of those things that are important to and for her, and volunteering with people with similar interests led to friendships and a job. Elizabeth was moving up the community arrow from a good paid life to a community life based on how Elizabeth defined her community.